So then you know that forms offers multiple question types, and that it can be used for surveys, for gathering information from your students, from parents. I used it to gather contact information the first welcome house we did. I used it for tests, and I used it for two of the options that we're going to show you today, but not the third one. One of the things you might not have tried yet is you can embed other objects in a form. You can make it branch based on the responses to questions inside the form, and you can use it to make digital breakouts, which is like the breakout room rage that we're sort of in still right now, but digital. Okay. So has anybody used forms for something beyond a test or a survey that they would like to share their thoughts with the rest of us about? You can unmute and do that. You can type it in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with. It just means I need to hush. This question is really just make Kyle hush. Okay, so I'm gonna hush.
I use Google Form. I use one form that I track all of my communication. So when I communicate with classroom teachers or parents or administration, so that when someone asks a question, oh, did you talk to so-and-so about whatever it is? I go back on my data of my form and say, yep, on this day at this time, and this is what we talked about.
Cool, thank you. We've talked about doing that very thing for like office hours, where we could track who we talked to from what school and what kind of question they had, so that we could kind of keep track of what the most commonly asked questions are. Anybody else?
When I was an instructional facilitator, I had a Google form. So when I went into a classroom to observe, to give them some feedback on what I saw while I was in there, and it actually was set up, and I did have help setting it up, but it was set up to send a response to them.
Yeah, so the facilitators, one of the things we do at the beginning of the year is we help principals set up walkthroughs so that when they, do their walkthrough, their observation, whatever you like to call it, they can hit a button, the person gets a formatted email. It's kind of like what happened to you guys, not this morning, but originally, when you got the formatted email that said, here's the link to the meeting. That's obviously not somebody sitting there and typing back to everybody. That's just automated. Holly says that the DC is having them keep track of teleworking hours via forms. Cindy said that they use it as a survey to vote for the best directors of the year in her world. That's cool. All right. So we've used it for lots of different ideas, and I'm going to roll into idea number one for today. So here's what's going to happen. If you click on the picture, you're going to get a link that will take you to the form that you could fill out. Please don't fill these forms out. They're not really for that. They're just so you can see an example. I'm going to open up the edit side of that. So if you want to, on your second device now, this is when you would go into your drive and you could open up a blank form. If you want to play kind of as I walk you through doing that, I have this one here that I'm calling the sandbox so that I can mess it up. Okay, so I'm going to royally screw this one up over time. But I wanted to show you what it is. So our first idea, and this is the simplest one, is that you could use a form as a guided lesson for your students. Especially right now, this could be really nice. So let's say that you're using Classroom, to push out content, and you want to give kids some version of a playlist, let's say, or a list of tasks that they would do. It can be differentiated. You could send different forms to different kids. But here's something you could do. So this is just an example that I kind of threw together. So you'll see that when I'm in the form, I just did something really simple right here. I just added a text box that said, hey, this one's about the food chain. This one's aimed toward elementary kids. And on your end, you don't see that it says untitled video. You just see the big video. So the idea here is pretty simple. I could put whatever content I wanted here. This is an embedded YouTube video. And then I can ask multiple choice questions after that. If you already use something like Ed Puzzle for this, I'm kind of thinking this along the same lines, except for in forms, you could embed other stuff too. So in Edpuzzle, you're kind of stuck for the most part with the video and some questions. I really love Edpuzzle, but if you don't use it, you should check that out too. But this is a way to just make it very, very simple for yourself to throw together. Once I found my video, this took no time to add. And what you can do is you can then just continue kind of asking questions. You could add more content. You could add links to Google Docs or Drive slides or drawings as well. So the way that I did that, in case you're not familiar with embedding a YouTube clip, is over here on the side. We probably live most of our life where it says add question, and I want you to notice that there are 5 other options, right? So you can add a video, and it works just like it does in Google Slides and pretty similarly to Google Sites, if you're familiar with that. You search YouTube right here. I searched for Crash Course, because that's my most frequented channel as a professional. And so in Crash Course, if you're familiar as a middle or high school teacher, these are really great for history and science and some English. In elementary, there's Crash Course Junior, which is fantastic for science in about 4th and 5th grade. So you would just click on the video that you wanted and hit select, and it pops it in like that. It's pretty great. While you're in there, you don't have to do any editing of any kind. You can grab a corner and shrink it and move it around. That's about it. It's pretty cool. So below that, I can start asking questions. And here, all I did, just to show that you could if you haven't tried it before, I added in pictures. So the way that you do that is when you do a multiple choice question, anytime you hover over a choice, you just hover to the end and you got the add image button, which is always the 2 mountains. And you can get the add image button that, again, is the exact same add image button that you get in all the other Google Suite. Cassie says, I had difficulty with a video last week. Is there a limit for the video length? I tried one that was 3 minutes, one that was 10. Not that I know of, because it's embedded, Cassie. So it's not like you've uploaded the video to the form. It's just a link out to YouTube. Should work. I haven't had a video just not load, but I'll look up and see if there's a limit and get back to you on that. Let me write that down real fast. And then Quana says, will it allow me to upload a YouTube video that is restricted? Okay, no. I had trouble seeing a Holocaust video out last week to my students, and you teach night. Of course you do. Yeah. So, yeah, that stinks. So Quana, I had this question from somebody else last week. So YouTube restricts its videos to our users. It doesn't, that's not like us blocking it. So unfortunately, we can't change it. It's an algorithm that YouTube uses. And so if it's inside of our domain like this is, content does get restricted. And Cassie, that may very well be what happened to you too. I don't know what it was. Sometimes it doesn't make a bit of sense what's been restricted. It's just an algorithm that happens. And unfortunately, we don't impact that. We don't block YouTube. So we did, but we don't now. And we don't go in and block like specific keywords or certain videos inside of YouTube. So YouTube's algorithm does that. So that could happen, Quana. And we have talked to Caroline Spencer and Rebecca Ray about that, because we would really like to fix that. So the idea here is, anyway, that when you're in that send view, again, this is kind of the simplest one. When you're in that send view, as you are now, it looks pretty nice. You get just a video, and the questions look much cleaner and prettier in the audience's view. And it looks really nice. So you could put that in a playlist, and right now you could put up a playlist for the week or for each day, and that kind of be what manages that. Why do I do that instead of just sticking it in Classroom? Because all these questions, all the responses go to that same spreadsheet if I've set that up, right? So that's pretty nice. So again, that's option one. That's kind of the simplest one. It's just putting stuff there other than questions, really. So I'm going to stop and make sure there's no more questions about that and just shut my yap. If you want to start something like that, go right ahead. If you have any questions on helping you do that, let me know. I'm going to look at the chat right now. Yeah, so Quana, what's happening is so even though we aren't restricting it, YouTube is restricting it differently because they're in our domain. So it knows we're education. So, but it's kind of like handling that for us, which sometimes we'd rather they not. But they're kind of restricting it for us, whereas it wasn't age restricted on regular old YouTube.
It's just an extra safety barrier, just in case.
Yeah, and you know, when you go on YouTube, you can change the restrictions to be I think it says, it doesn't say adult, it says 18 plus, I believe. Age restriction, I think is what it says. And you can, yeah, see what you want. But yeah, but while they're logged into our domain, yeah. So even though it's not us doing the filtering, it does filter us as an educational domain. I know that doesn't help a lot. The second one is a bit more complicated, and it's breakouts. So if you click that link, it's going to take you to a breakout that I used with my 5th graders. It's really kind of a middle school breakout, but if you've done digital breakouts before, you know that sometimes the age level doesn't matter a whole lot. It's kind of more of a puzzle than it is more difficult or less difficult for an age group. I wouldn't go any younger than, say, 4th grade on this one. But what you see is you've got a pretty cool website that this guy, I forget his name, has made a bunch of these. This one's about the Gettysburg Address, and if you scroll down, you'll see that there's 5 buttons he's made. He's just done this using a Google site, so you could easily make one of these on your own. And over on the left, he's embedded a Google form. Okay, so the way you would do that in Sites, this isn't a Sites class, but the way you do it in Sites is you would just do Insert Form, and you would find the form you made in your Drive, and it sticks it right in there. It's real easy. That's literally the steps. Insert Form, select, and you're done. So you'll notice that on the left-hand side, all these have a place where you just type in what he's calling a code because it's a breakout, right? But what really happens is if you know the date, it'll let you move on. If you don't know the date, so if I put in something I know to be wrong, and I try to move on to the next question, if you're looking at my screen for a second, you can try it yourself. It says it's still locked, and less than 100 years after, it gives you like a clue, right? Love this, okay? You can do this several ways. You'll notice that his form has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different locks. So in order to hit next, I would have to get all 6 correct. The only drawback to this is if you don't get this done in a class, period, you're going to have to write down the codes because it's not going to remember anything because I haven't actually submitted anything at all. So when I try to go through and type in these codes, it basically barks at me after I click on a different cell. So I want to show you how to do that in your own form. It doesn't have to be used for a digital breakout. It can be done to make sure the student has an answer right before moving on to the next one, which is going to help us on our 3rd idea. So let's say that I'm going to edit this form. So let's say I add a question. There we go. Where'd it go? There we are. All right, let's say I add a question and I say, what is the best college basketball team? There's only one right answer. So I'm going to put Duke, clearly, and then Carolina, and then, I don't know, Kentucky, some horrible other team, and UCLA. Okay? So what I would like to do is I want to make sure that everybody knows that the correct answer is Duke. I mean, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the triple dot in the bottom right corner. Well, I need to make this required first, sorry. All right, and I'm going to click where it says, I've screwed this up. There it is. I'm going to click up here. I'm going to turn this into a, oh, I've lost my button, y'all. Maybe I lost the button. Oh, it's got to be a text box, duh. There we go. and I'm going to make it do response validation. Sorry, you have to ask a short answer question, duh. I was so caught up in my Duke joke. So I'm going to do response validation. And now what it says is you're going to see a little box on the form when I click on preview. But here, I can type in what you ought to see. So I've done this with math before where it's a number, right? No one is greater than or less than if you're doing a math problem, because you probably want them to have a certain answer. But I'm going to change it so that it's text. And I'm going to say, okay, the answer's Duke. So the text has to contain Duke. You might want to do that, because what if they type Duke University or Duke Blue Devils? Or so I'm going to have to put in contains. And the error text is, nope, not Carolina, or the rest. So when I'm done with that, let me go back to preview. And when I type in Duke, it should let me move on, no problem. When I type in Carolina, it says, nope, not Carolina, right? So it tells you when you've erred in your ways, okay? So you can use this as a way to make sure the kids have the right answer. If you're not doing a test, you just want to make sure that they're working up step by step, you can do that. Or you can give them a digital breakout. You can make it as complicated or as simple as you want. I have seen this done where it was a math test or math review, since we're doing so much review right now. And it starts off with a very easy math problem. I've seen people do it like as with a golf analogy. So there's like 18 holes or 18 questions. And the way they did it was every question got progressively more difficult. So you were gonna break out of the first 10 or 12, but you better, right? So we want to make sure you got those right, because you really should. And then they got tougher toward the end. You can do some really cool stuff where you make each question pop up on its own page, so that the kid has to hit next to go to the second question. So they basically have to get number one right first. Whereas the gentleman on his breakout, he had the 6 locks. I could do them in any order I felt like. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on how you want to set up the learning experience. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions unique to that. So that's idea number 2. Again, in your blank form, you could be creating something right now if you want to. And as I inadvertently pointed out, it doesn't work from multiple choice questions.
Is it case sensitive when they type in their answers?
I don't believe it's case sensitive, but it's definitely spelling sensitive, right? Because it's got to be that answer. Let me try case and see. I don't think so. Ah, it is. So what you would do though, and this is what you'll see, I bet you have it on this guy's breakout. Let me show you. Yeah, there it is right there. Yeah. So he'll put in his directions. Let me show you how to do that if you haven't before. So you've got the question here, question type. The 3-dot menu has all the extra stuff. There's only a couple things. Description would be one. So you would put in your description, it has to be in all caps or whatever. Start with a capital letter or whatever it might be. Yeah. And now that I think about it, that did throw my kids on the breakout. They would have it all just typed in really quickly and didn't think about it. And they would just get really frustrated that they didn't know what the breakout was when it had to be all caps. That's right. That's a good question. And no, you can't add other ones. That's something I would like to have, because maybe for a math question, I want it to be greater than this, but less than that. You know, maybe there's multiple right answers, and it's okay to have a range. So it is a little limited. And you can do only those 4 options. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty good on that one. That's pretty cool. But for those of you who have thought about digital breakouts and wondered about it before and maybe not tried it, that's really it. Okay, so all the other things that this gentleman did was they were in just Google Sites. So all 6 of these pages, when you go here, he's just got a picture. In this case, he's made this picture linked to an article or a test, I believe, in this one. It's just linked to another web page. So I think this is the date. I think it's November 6, 1960s. I mean, 1860 is one of the dates. It's pretty simple, really. The form's not the hardest part. You know, the time spent just making the site would be the hardest part. It's not that bad. All right, this one is our most significant idea and would take the longest to create. Okay, so here's our third and final idea. All right. And this one is on my presentation. If you go to slide 18, you click on this one, it says the personalized review for Egypt, and you'll click that. You'll see the public version of this, and I'll show you the other side of this because you'll only see name and stuff on the first page. All right, so here's what this guy does. This is for a personalized review of Egypt, but obviously you could deal with any subject that you like. What happens is once you type in your name and stuff, you come down to review question number 1. Okay, so let's walk through what's happening here because this has a lot of sections and a lot of pages, so it can look pretty crazy from my view. What you have here is a title box that says review question. Okay, notice that is not like the question box itself. It's one of these title boxes, and it's just made using title and description. Actually, this is a new section, so it would give you this little title box already. To add a new section, you do this guy, 2 separated rectangles, and it adds a new section. A new section is going to end up being a second page. So here is just a picture, right? So that's inserted by using the mountain icon. This is not a picture for a question. It's just, hey, here's a picture. You could have stuck it in the question too. Then you scroll down and you have a multiple choice question, right? Everything looks normal. So, but here's what it's going to do. Based upon your answer to this question, your form on your end, and you can play along with it if you're in the preview mode or in the view mode. This isn't going to mess up anybody's grades or anything. You'll notice that based upon whether your answer is right or wrong, it's going to take you to a different screen. So I'm going to click on this question to show you how that happens. It's right here. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. Let me scroll up for a second. So section 1 is just who are you, which you really don't need. I mean, it's going to pull their email address anyway. Section 2 is really just question 1. Okay, so section 2 is the heading, the picture, and the question. That's it. That's all that's in that entire page. So it's going to be very much like an online test where it's one question at a time. But what you're doing here is you're saying, okay, C is correct. Food production was centered along the Nile River. If they get the answer right, you want them to move on. If you get the answer wrong, you want them to go to review. So how's this different than the thing we just did in response validation? So in response validation, they had to type in answer 1, so they can't type in like a long explanation and it be perfectly the same as your long explanation. So that means it has to be multiple choice or checkboxes. So if we make it multiple choice, then I want the kids that get it correct to move on, but I want to stop the kids that don't. And not only do I want to stop them and make them re-answer their question, I want to stop and reteach them. Okay, this is where it can be really, really cool. But this one takes the most time to create. So if they get it right, they move to section 4. Now we're in section 2. So if we go all the way down to section 4, that's section 3. Section 4 is just the second question. Okay, so they get it right, they jump to the second question. If they get it wrong, let me scroll back up. They go to the review for number 1, right? So you got number 1 wrong, so you need review. So section 3 is the review. Look at what it says. It says use this video, short passage, picture, whatever it is, to try to find the right answer. So here we've put a picture of a selection On some of the questions, there's a little video that they should review and then re-answer the question. So then the picture and question is just in here again. Okay. So let me show you how to do that. It's going to do that for, I forgot how many questions on this one, but it's going to keep going. So basically, this is called a zero fail test. Nobody can fail it. They're going to keep going through it until they get them all right. Okay, so this wouldn't be good for data on proficiency or mastery of this. It would just make them constantly come back to learn the information. So here's how you do it. It's got to be multiple choice, and you're going to come down here to the dots, and you're going to see that we have selected go to a section based on the answer. Okay, that's what turns it on. So let me go back to my sandbox file that I can mess up. I'm going to scroll way down here. So I already have a second section. So let's say that here, my little kids don't understand that the grass is not a consumer. And they don't understand that, well, I'm not going to do that one. That's checkboxes. I'll do this one. Which one of these is a producer? So they should pick grass and not bears, fish, or fungi. Okay. So I'm going to click edit in here. I'm going to scroll down to where it has the 3 dots. And I'm going to choose go to section based on answer. Now, mine says continue to next section on all of them. So if you look, we'll scroll on down. If you look, I don't have another section. So I'm going to come over to the rectangles. I'm going to add a section. And in this section, I want it to be below everything else. So I'm going to get this up here. There we go. Oh, it won't let me. That's right. I have to put a question first. So I'm going to change this question so that it will give them feedback on their answer. So let's say that for all the ones that they click that aren't a producer, so bears, fish, and fungi, I need to put something here that will show them the correct thing. So I'm going to go find a picture, and I'm going to find a picture for the food chain. And oh, that looks cool, actually. I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to insert it. And I love how it slings things way down here. All right. So I'm going to say review this to see if you can figure out what a producer is. It's kind of hard to scroll when I've made the questions like so gigantic. There we go. I'm going to delete this guy out of my way for now. So I don't have to just keep scrolling. Okay. So what's going to happen is if they get this wrong, I want them to go to this section, and I'm going to call it the review section for whatever question that is. Okay. If they get it right, then they can be done. They can be done with the test. That's it. That's the last question. So when I click in there and I've turned on the branch to different sections based on response, this is the right answer. So I'm going to put, it's cool if you submit after this one. Okay. So I'm going to let you submit if you get that right. Yeah, you're done. If you think bears are producers, oh my goodness, you're not right. So I need you to go to the next section. Or I can say go to the section 3 specifically. In our case, it's the same thing. But you can see that you can pick. You can even make them look backwards. You're like, no. You need to go back and watch that video from before because you clearly didn't get it. So I'm going to go to section 3. And I'm going to put that for all these. Now, in my case, what's going to happen is when you take this quiz, you're going to be able to submit if you get this right. If you get it wrong, you're going to have to go to section 3 and you're going to look at this little chart and you're like, ooh, okay, so plants, those are producers. Oh man, goodness gracious. All right. So then I can make it so after that, I can copy this question and have you answer it again. So I'm going to go to the bottom of this question where it says duplicate. And I'm going to just scroll it down below the picture. So there's that. So I'm going to ask that question again. If you still don't get that correct, I'm going to loop you right back to the knitting. So it's going to keep looping. So basically it's going to give you 4 cracks at that question. Okay. And that's really it. So the way that the Egyptian one works is it just keeps doing that. So you'll see there's 39 sections. So it just keeps going because it has different review for every single question. So you've got to figure that there's there's the question, there's the review material for that question, and then there's the next question. So for every question you ask, you need another question and review for it. And then when you get to the very end, you'll need review for the last question, or you'll change like I did on mine to where it says, okay, now you can submit. Okay. So we're calling that personalized review, but whenever you think of branching forms, any of the surveys you might have taken, it says, you know, I think about the one that I would do when I met my kids at the beginning of the year, it would say, are you a bus rider? Well, if so, the next question would be, what bus? You know, whereas if you're a car rider, it wouldn't take you to that. So that's the third idea, and that is how to branch. It only does it for multiple choice, and I think it won't do it for checkboxes. Yeah, it won't do it for checkbox. It will do response validation, but it won't do branching for anything but multiple choice. So that is the third idea of the day. We aren't going into all the advanced things you can do inside of Sheets. That's how we do the automated emails that you guys got. If you do have questions about that specifically, we can definitely help you with that. Basically, it's a Google add-on. We use a bunch of different ones. We use AutoCrat, C-R-A-T, and Form Mule to send out automated emails. That's probably a little less useful if you're dealing with, you know, fewer people. But when we want stuff like that to happen, that's what we use. So if you have any other questions about that, please let us know. Or now, with about 15 minutes left, we have time for you to start working on your own form. We would like for you to ask questions as you go through that. And as you do, and as you wrap up your session today, if you will, come back to our slide. And here's what we would like for you to do for your artifact for today. If you'll complete the form that's on page or slide 20, when you get to the reflection, if you'll just tell us, okay, which method do you think you want to use? What's your topic going to be? What's your plan going to be? You can just say, hey, I'm an elementary teacher. I want to use this to teach the food chain, like the example. And I'm just going to use it to sort of gather things and not do a quiz, but have some sort of guided video response. I'm going to throw in some short answer, so my students have to actually think and type out the answer, but I want to include some multiple choice too, so that I can get all that data in one spot for myself in a spreadsheet. That would work. If you do have any other questions about the three methods, though, please just shout them out now. I'm going to hush, and I'll start watching the chat while you guys do that. When you go to the form, please do share the link to the form that you're working on. It doesn't matter if it's done right now, because as you build it, we'll get the new link, right? So remember, the way you would do that, you don't have to share it to us as collaborators. Unless you want to and you need help, you certainly could do that. But if you just go to send, oh, I'm getting some lag now. If you just go to send, click the link, and paste that link in the form, you can. There's a place to upload an actual document as an artifact. You don't need to do that today. You just need to paste that link in there and your reflection, and we'll be fine. So I'm gonna leave the reflection up there and go to the chat. So Ellen, can I share that one with you? Yeah. So I'll share it to you. Make a copy though, because it'll we don't want to change that one, right? Now you can imagine too, Ellen, that you do want that one, but you can imagine that it's got a lot of sections, so it's easy to get confused. You saw my scrolling when I'm trying to drag stuff; it gets kind of hectic. So do be careful with it. Don't get overwhelmed by it. I kind of might even branch it out on paper, so I know what number's what, because it does get a little overwhelming just because of all the scrolling. Meredith asks about contact info. The contact info is actually pretty easy. So let me show you that really fast. What you would do is you would ask questions, and I probably have one I can find and send your way too, Meredith. What you would do is you would have all the questions populate. So I asked, I'm an elementary teacher, so I asked, you know, mom's name, mom's email address, mom's phone, dad's name, dad's email address, dad's phone, method of dismissal. Do you want to help our PTO? You know, it had like everything imaginable on there, and they spilled into the responses. So instead of letting them spill here onto the place where we had charts and graphs and stuff, I clicked here. If you haven't done this before, highly recommend doing this. Even if you hate spreadsheets, this is the way to go because you can do other stuff with the data then. So I hit create spreadsheet, and I intentionally would let it name it the same thing with responses in parentheses, and I just hit create, and it will do this for you. So you'll notice that, Meredith, every column is just one of the questions. So what would happen is every column would be, every row would basically be everybody's demographic information. So I would have like name, email, phone number. And so when I wanted to do my email list, back when you could do this and just copy paste it in, I would just copy the whole email column and paste it in my contacts. You can't do that anymore, but yeah, it was a really great way to keep track of all that info when I had been doing the whole thing of printing off a grid and checking boxes when everybody turned in all their forms and all that. It took forever. So it goes in a spreadsheet. And so in your drive, you'll end up with a form that's in purple that says guided lesson sandbox, and you'll have a sheet that goes with it that's got the same name but says responses. My wife is a speech path, and she's doing office hours right now, I guess. And I suggested the same thing for her. So imagine all these people coming into your Zoom, and you're trying to keep track of all of them, right? It's easy to say, oh, I'll email you back. But when you're getting the volume that she's getting, it's super hard. So I said, why don't you just have a form up, and as you talk to each person, pop it in, and it's going to pull all that information into a spreadsheet for you, like a call center person would do.
Hey, Cal, I have a question.
Please.
So I'm not sure that I'm gonna articulate this the right way, but when if I'm doing the part where it says go to section based on answer.
Yeah.
For if there's only one or two of them that obviously that I really need for them to expand on, for the rest of them I say go to next section. Once I create the two answer choices that I want them to go to a different section, do I then have to, let's say it's section 3 of 3, but I've still got 5 more questions I want them to answer after that. Do I go to that last section, section 3 of 3, and then do I have to tell it once they've answered that to continue to the next section? Does that make sense?
So you want one question to branch,
or will it
but
automatically do it?
You want one question to branch, but you want them to come back to the same question eventually. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, after, yes.
So like, let's say that, let's say question 4 is, I don't know, are you a bus rider or are you a car rider? So let's say that if they click bus rider, then they're going to go to section 5 because they need to type in what bus they are. And then they're going to go to section 6 and they're going to put in, their address or whatever, right? But then section 7 is just a normal question. What you would do is you would have all the car riders. You would have option B, C, and D if they're not, whatever those are that aren't bus riders. You would have them all jump to section 7. And then you would have the bus rider continue down the entire stream. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so for the bus rider, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to tell it to go anywhere else next. It's just automatically, once they put in that bus number, it'll automatically go to the next one.
Yeah. So in your case, if you want them to come back together, then you really want everybody else to skip questions. So you're going to branch everybody that doesn't need a special question. You're going to jump them all to like whatever the next normal question is. And then the bus rider is going to have to go through every single question.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the bus riders will just say next section, and then everybody else will say go to section number whatever is the next actual question. And once you do that, you don't even have to keep doing sections at all, because you could put multiple questions in the same section. So you only need to branch into sections when there could be a need, a difference.
So if my last 5 questions, let's say, are the same for everybody, I do have to make that a section so that the first couple people, like all the car riders, will jump straight to those. I do have to make a section for those, right? Yes, I think I answered my question. I got it.
Or yeah.
Thank you.
So you're basically telling the people that don't need to branch that they can skip. So it'll say everybody that answers the other way, option B, C, and D, I guess, you would have them go to section whatever. Whereas the people that do need to answer all the questions, it's just like if you had a paper form and it said, are you a bus rider? And you say yes. If so, answer questions 4, 5, and 6. The census had a bunch of those kinds of questions. I know that.
Kyle, can you show how to input questions like from your question bank from other forms?
Yes. I don't know what form I might use, but let me see. So
Just go like pull in either all the schools like we use a lot.
yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, okay, cool. So if I want to pull in a question from another form, Abby's suggestion is a great one. So like if one of our questions is a list of every school, the only way to do that is to type them all in. So obviously we don't do that. So we come down here to where we have this little piece of paper with an arrow on it. It's import. You can see that all it's doing is searching your drive for forms. So I'm going to search for one I know has that. The virtual PD sign-in does. And you can see that when I pull up the form that I know has the question I want, it has all of its questions kind of listed here in a pane on the right. So when I find, where's school name? There it is. I just click the little check mark and import that question or a bunch of them, whatever. I'm going to pull in grade level and subject too. And so it just pulls those questions in. And they probably went to the bottom. Yeah. So that's great because I don't want to type all that in, right? So you just do the import button, search for the form you're trying to pull in. You're not pulling the entire form, you're only pulling in questions from it, and then zip them in. Meredith, I think I missed part of your question. You said directions on how to do which one? The contact info or the log? Oh, awesome. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah, I told her I would just share her. I have a template made, so I'll just share it with her. If anyone else wants it, feel free to drop your email and I'll put you on my list.
You can pull, yeah, you could just check every question, Cindy. If you want to copy the whole form though, you could just copy it like you would another document and then add other questions to it. So like when I send, so Ellen asked for the Egypt form, I'm just going to copy it and send her the copy, or I'll send it to her, make a copy, and then she can come in and she can use the same structure and then replace it with whatever topic she needs. Abby, you want to talk about what your form does?
I can.
Yeah, go for it.
So I've had a lot of teachers reach out and ask me how to basically the best way to document when you're contacting parents, especially during this time. So I just made a form and I dropped all their students' names. And then the next question was like method of contact. So email, text, phone call, those kind of things. You could even put, did they call you? Did you call them? And then you could do what you talked about. And then if you have any follow-up that you need to do, if you had any concerns or anything you needed to talk about, you could then put like results or follow up, those kind of things. Then you can put it into a sheet rather than having it in the form responses. So you can sort it by student, and you can even take it a step further and learn some pivot tables if you really want to. That's just an easier way. And then they just shared that sheet with their principals, which made it so their principals were able to see, and they had their documentation for their contact during this time.
I think there's an example on GCS at Home, but it's not, I don't think it's that one. Maybe it is, I don't know. I know that I'm pretty sure principals shared some version of that.